Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Super Sports Central. Today we have my Week 8 college football predictions. So last week I had a record of 10-5. So not the greatest record, but I'll take it. It's a decent record. So that brings my overall record for the season to 131. So some teams are on a bye week this week. Those teams are Georgia, Michigan State, Iowa, Kentucky, Auburn, and Baylor. And those are only the teams in the top 25. Because if I were to list every team that had a bye week, that would go on forever, and because I only predict games that have top 25 teams. So starting off, we have Cincinnati at Navy. So Cincinnati's a really good team. Alabama transfer Jerome Ford has 102 carries for 709 yards and 12 touchdowns on the season, and that is the second most rushing touchdowns by a player in the country. And Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder is having a great season. I think Cincinnati is going to win in dominating fashion, 56-7. Oklahoma against Kansas. I don't expect the game to be close for a second. It's really one of those games that's over before it starts. So earlier in the season, Kansas got their first win since 2019, and Oklahoma is one of the best teams in the country, especially when they have Caleb Williams at quarterback, because his mobility and his rushing threat opens up lanes for running backs to run through. So I think Kansas is going to dominate against Oklahoma is going to dominate against a really bad Kansas team by a score of 66-0. Northwestern at Michigan. Michigan looks really good this season. They have wins against Western Michigan, Washington, Northern Illinois, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, and they're coming off a bye week. So while none of those opponents are stand out off the page, where it's wow, that's a really good team that Michigan beat, it's just overall they've just been playing good football, and I expect that to continue against Northwestern with the 38-10 win to set up a showdown next week against undefeated Michigan State, who is a bye week this week. So if Michigan wins, they're going to both be undefeated, and that's going to be a fun game to watch. Illinois at Penn State. Penn State coach James Franklin has not named a starting quarterback because Sean Clifford's injury he suffered against Iowa he's still questionable. So it's either going to be Clifford or Traquan Robertson. Regardless of who Penn State starts, they're going to win. I have Penn State winning 31-6. Wake Forest at Army. So, Wake Forest is the only undefeated team in the ACC. And they don't have a great run defense. And Army is a very run-heavy team. They have the second most rushing yards in the country, average it per game, and total rushing yards, they're third in the country. So I think Army will pull off the upset here because they are home, and I think Wake Forest's run defense is not good enough to stop Army and shut them down completely. I have Army pulling off the upset 28-24. So that's a game that could go either way. So Wisconsin at number 25, Purdue. So Purdue upset Iowa last week on the road. So that was obviously a really tough test for Purdue. So Wisconsin is not very good. Their 3 wins this season are against Eastern Michigan, Illinois, and Army. So while Army is a little bit of a better team, none of those are impressive wins at all. And they haven't beaten a ranked team this season. They lost to Michigan, Notre Dame, and Penn State. And the games against Michigan and Notre Dame were not close at all. So Purdue is 4-2 with losses to Notre Dame and Minnesota. So both teams have lost to Notre Dame. It could go either way. I have Purdue defeating Wisconsin 23-14. Number 8 Oklahoma State against Iowa State. So this game could go either way. Iowa State is 4-2. However, both their losses are to top 25 opponents. They lost to Iowa and they lost to Baylor. So Baylor is 5-1 with their only loss to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is undefeated. They beat Baylor, as I just mentioned. I think it could go either way, but I have Oklahoma State beating Iowa State 31-27. Number 10, Oregon at UCLA. So in the preseason, I was going back and forth on this game. I probably changed the outcome I had about 15 times. It could just go either way, and I still feel it can go either way. I ended up with Oregon in the preseason, and I'm going to go with Oregon now. UCLA is 5-2 with losses to Fresno State and Arizona State. And Oregon has one loss against Stanford, and UCLA beat Stanford. So, as you can see, it could go either way. UCLA is home, so meaning this game would be played at the Rose Bowl. I think Oregon gets out of the Rose Bowl with the 31-30 win in an extremely tightly contested, very good game. So it could go either way. LSU at Ole Miss. So LSU is 4-3. They've lost to Kentucky, Auburn, and UCLA. However, they've beaten Florida. And against Florida, they were able to run the ball, and their offense has been better since they've been able to run the ball. Ole Miss only has one loss, and that was to Alabama. Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral left last week's game with an injury. He might play. Ole Miss is not named a quarterback, just like Penn State. They have a backup. The backup may play. But, so, if Corral plays, Ole Miss is going to win. If he doesn't play, then LSU. So, with Corral, I have Ole Miss 52-38. Without him, I have LSU 41-34. Clemson at number 23, Pittsburgh. So it's weird to see Clemson unranked, and it's also strange to see them playing an opponent ranked higher than them. So Pitt is a very good team. Their only loss is to Western Michigan, and you're like, Western Michigan, that's not really that good to be losing to Western Michigan. But there are they're 5-1, and Clemson's 4-2 with losses against Georgia and NC State. So this game is in Pittsburgh. I think that's going to be a factor for the outcome of this game, and I think Pitt is going to make Clemson's disappointing season even more disappointing with the 24-14 win. Tennessee at Alabama. So Alabama bounced back from a upset loss to Texas A&M last week with a dominant statement win over Mississippi State 49-9 last week. Tennessee's 4-3 with losses to Pitt, Florida, and Ole Miss. So those teams I just listed, the three teams Tennessee lost to, Pitt, Florida, and Ole Miss, they're all pretty good teams. I think Alabama will dominate against Tennessee 45-17. Number 22, San Diego State against Air Force. Air Force is 6-1 with their only loss to Utah State. Air Force has the best rushing offense in the nation. San Diego State's also a good rushing team, but I expect Air Force to beat San Diego State with the 27-24 win, but you could argue San Diego State for this game. UTSA against Louisiana Tech. So UTSA is 7-0, but they do play in the Conference USA, so they don't have an impressive win over any opponent. Louisiana Tech has lost to every decent team they've played. I have UTSA with the 31-21 victory. Number 6, Ohio State at Indiana. Ohio State is 5-1 with their only loss against a good Oregon team. And Indiana is 2-4 with wins against Western Kentucky and Idaho, and those teams are not very good. I have Ohio State dominating in this game 45-17. USC at Notre Dame. Jack Cohen will start for Notre Dame, but true freshman Tyler Buckner will continue to see playing time according to Coach Brian Kelly. Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer is likely to return, after missing the game against Virginia Tech with an injury, and he also had last week to recover because Notre Dame was on a bye last week. So I have Notre Dame defeating USC 27-13. South Carolina at Texas A&M. So A&M has been good after their two losses against Arkansas and against Mississippi State. They upset Alabama, and they haven't lost since they lost to Mississippi State. So South Carolina isn't that great of a team. I have Texas A&M winning the game 34-14. And the last game, NC State at Miami. So Miami is having a disappointing season just like Clemson. They were one of the favorites in the ACC Coastal Division. It was, so on paper in the preseason, it was supposed to be Clemson against either Miami or North Carolina in the ACC Championship, and that is not looking likely at all. Neither Clemson nor Miami are looking like they're going to make it to the ACC Championship. They're the second worst team in the ACC Coastal Division. The only worst team is Duke. NC State looks really good. Their only loss is to Mississippi State. They did upset Clemson. I have NC State in a close game, 28-24. So, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment. And you can tell me in the comments if you agree, disagree, and why. And you can also go check out the community tab of my channel, so you can go vote on what the winner of certain games. So like, subscribe, comment, and go vote on the games in the community tab. So like, subscribe, comment, and vote on the games in the community tab.